Hey guys, Chris here, and today I want to show you a tutorial. What I'm going to do today is retouch this photo you see here in front of you. This was from one of my more recent shoots. It's part of my new project that I'm doing of portraits at night, and I think it's going to be a pretty cool project. So let's go ahead and get started. So this image, as you can see, I did underexpose it on purpose. The camera that I'm using is a Nikon D750, and I'm using just a standard 50 1.8. It does not have image stabilization, which I highly recommend because you do have to put the shutter speed a little low on when you do shoots like this, and I was not using a tripod. Luckily for me, the images did come out clear enough so that I can go ahead and work on them. So the first thing that I'm going to do for this image is I'm going to go down to my lens corrections, and I always do this. This is my default first thing to do. I usually batch do these, but for just this tutorial, I'm going to go ahead and just do what I would do one by one. So the first thing that I do is I enable profile corrections and remove chromatic aberrations. Even if I think that there's nothing there, I go ahead and do it anyway. So it goes ahead and shows me that I'm using a Nikon lens, and I'm using the 50 1.8D. It does not have image stabilization, and it goes ahead and profiles it for me. So the next thing that I do for this type of image is I go to the shadows, and I bring the shadows all the way up to 100. The next thing that I'm going to do, and this is why I love this camera, is I'm going to bring the exposure up to about, well, you know what, it doesn't even need to go that high. Keep it a little bit about, yeah, right there. So we went plus 1.85. This camera has amazing dynamic range. The reason I wanted to shoot it underexposed is because I didn't want to overexpose the highlights to where I could not bring them back. So this is the reason that I did that. Now for the highlights, you can see I get a main highlight right here, and you got one right here on the shoulder. This is also highlighted right in this area. But what I would like to do, instead of decreasing that, which brings it down, I'm going to go ahead and increase it so it looks a little more like the entire forehead has been hit with a spotlight, which is sort of what I want to do. Not too much, but right about there. So according to here, you can see the little red spot. If you go up to the top right where my arrow is, it says show highlight clipping. So as you can see, the clipping is right in, well, let me highlight it. As you can see, the clipping is right here and along her shirt here and right down here and a little bit on her fingers, but that's okay because this is what I'm going for. So that looks perfect right there. And this is where you have to start using your artisticness and treat the image how you would like it to look. So we're still in the original bit, we're still in the basic section right here. And the first thing that I'm going to do is bring up the clarity just a touch. I'd say about 5. And just for everybody to know, I am not using a mouse, and I am not using a Wacom tablet, which is what I usually do use. I just don't have it at my disposal. So believe it or not, I'm using the trackpad on my MacBook Pro. So it goes to show that you can edit an image with with a trackpad. You don't need anything special, although it does help tremendously for many situations. but for this one, we'll do just fine with what I have. So, okay, so I raised the clarity. What I want to do now is bring up the vibrance and just a touch on the saturation. Maybe not that much, just 1%. I really don't want much on that. So the next thing that I'm going to see is, do I want any unhazing, dehazing? Do I want to use this at all? Not necessarily. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that at 0. But what I do want to do is I want to bring the blacks down just a hair to about, not even that much. Let's do it at 10. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now, I could do this a few different ways, but I'm going to start to get creative here shortly. So let me just go into my tone curves and see if this interests me at all. Bring this up a little bit. Bring the center down a little bit. Now this is where I decide if I want to get this flat looking image for my final outcome, or if I just want to keep it popping. So I think I'm going to keep this looking really like it's give a really good punch. So I'm going to leave it alone and not even mess with the tone curves. For my HSL, I like the way that the colors look, so I'm not really going to mess with that either. Split toning, I'm going to leave alone. Detail, okay, so for the detail, I do want to do some masking for the sharpness. A lot of people like to use Photoshop for this, but this is just quick for me, especially for this tutorial. So I'm just going to bring it down a bunch to where I only want so the eyes and the hair and the brick to really be sharpening. I don't really care for the skin to be sharpened because it starts to look fake. So I'm going to leave it at about there, and that looks pretty good. So what I want to check now is how my if I need to do any noise reduction, and it doesn't really look like I need to do any noise reduction. I did shoot this at ISO 100 to help eliminate with that, but since I did bring it back so much, I just want to check to see if I need to remove any noise. And believe it or not, it appears that I do not need to remove any noise from this picture. There is a little bit of noise, so let me just go ahead and do 15, 16 or so, and that pretty much got rid of it, and it didn't affect the picture really. So I like the way that this looks right now, and let's go move forward. Lens correction, we already did that. We don't need to do anything to the transform because it looks the way that I want it to look. And effects and calibration, I'm not even going to mess with. So I'm just going to open up the basic panel again just to have it open. But what I do want to do is grab my crop tool, and this little part of her leg down here, I want to crop that out. So to do that, I just bring it up just above it. And the next thing I want to do is I want to crop some of this above her head out because there's too much empty space. So what I'm going to do, instead of bringing it down in the center that makes it all crop, I want to grab it from here so it just crops it in so, and then I'm going to bring it down from the middle. This way it looks like it's more towards the rule of thirds. So I'm going to go ahead and click return, and that does look a lot better. So I'm going to leave that alone right there. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of creativity now. So I'm going to grab this tool right here. Forgive me, I forgot. It's the gradient filter. I'm sorry. So I'm going to grab the gradient filter and I'm going to change it to tint. Now, you see the tint is already high at 77. I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. I'm going to make the center point about right here. I'm going to drag it out. So what that does is that everything that is behind her will have more of a magenta look. Now, I don't know if I like it there for the simple fact that it makes her cheek a little too much magenta. So what I can do is see how it looks on this side, and we'll bring it around like this. And what I will do is adjust it to how I think it would look good. About right there. And let's go ahead and bring the temperature up a little bit as well. And that will increase the effect a little bit. Some more magenta. Okay. And that's looking, it's not really doing anything. So let's see before and after. It does make a change, but I don't really like it. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and flip this back around, but I'm going to do it in a more subtle way. So I'm just going to bring this down this way so it's not really affecting her face. I don't really want it to affect her arm either. If you hear a fan, I'm sorry, that's my MacBook. It's working really hard right now. So, okay, so that will be okay right there. So let's go ahead and click done on that. Okay, so I'm going to leave that effect alone. Now what I want to do is I'm going to grab my brush tool. I'm going to click on the effect. I'm going to go down to clarity. You can see clarity is set to 59 right now. So let's go ahead and increase this brush a little bit, and let's just do the brick. It'll make the brick pop out a lot more. Careful not to touch her. You go around this way. And what you can do is you can let go of everything, and it saved it in the history. So any point after that, when you start over, it'll just erase what you are doing right now and not the entire thing. So what I suggest is you do a lot of releasing, so in that way, if there was an error, you don't have to start all the way over. Okay, so what you do to check, make sure you just can highlight over the little circle here, and you can see where I went ahead and masked all around. Now, if you want to see what you're doing while you're doing it, there is a shortcut key, and that shortcut key is O, and it'll highlight it. So let's make our brush a little smaller, and let's go over here a little bit. Let's get a little bit closer over here. Careful not to touch her face. A little bit over here, and just above her hair. Okay, and I can hit O to get rid of that. And then I can hit return and return again, and that goes ahead and closes that brush. So this is looking good to me for right now, but I still feel that it needs a little bit more something. So what I'm going to do is, and the great thing about this is that you can do this while you're out in the field, but I'm going to do it in a plugin that I have instead to give it a lighting effect. The lighting effect that you see right now on her face right here and on her arm is used with a blank CD or DVD and the light reflecting from a smartphone onto her. So that's how you get that effect onto her. So what I'm going to do now is just a little bit of experimenting, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to edit in, and I'm going to use exposure 2. I'm going to do edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments. I'm going to click on edit, and this might take a moment, but what it's going to do is it's going to open up a file in that program. Okay, so now that file is open in this program. I'm not going to use any of these filters over here, so I'm going to click on this little arrow and hide that so I have more room to work. I'm also not going to use the before because I don't need to. So I'm going to click on that, and that just makes the image a little bit bigger. So what I want is right here is the light effect. But I don't want this particular light effect that is happening right here. So what I can do is click on this little arrow right here to choose a different light leak effect. I can click all, which is what I'm going to do, and I can go ahead and just see which one I like. And it does have a lot. And once you pick the one that you like, I'll show you a couple of different options that you can do. So you want to, when you do these, you don't want to overdo it because it will degrade your photo and it won't look as good as you want it to. So I actually like this flare right here, but I don't want it, so I'm going to click on it, but I don't want it on this side of the photo. I want it on the back side of the photo. So the way that I do that is I get this arrow right here that shows left to right. So I'm flipping it horizontally, so it's going to go ahead and flip it to this side. All right, so that looks somewhat better because I still like this blue over here and it's shining blue on her face, so I want to keep that. So what I'm going to do now is the opacity right now is at 70. I'm going to bring that opacity down a little bit more, not that much, maybe to about 60. Okay, so that looks good right there. Now that I look at it, I don't know if I'm happy with it. And if that's the case, all you have to do is open up this little arrow right here, and it'll go right back to your filters. Now, since this was a flare, it's a sun flare, so it's going to open up all the sun flares. So you can just go ahead and do it this way if you like. You know what? I think I like this one right here. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, so it's in the position that I want, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and bring the opacity down on that one just a little bit. About right there. Now, something that I have not tried, no, it doesn't work. I tried to see if I can manually move the filter, the light effect in and out, and I cannot. But that's okay. So this looks okay, but the one thing that I do not like about it is that it made the picture seem a little bit flat over here on this side. So there, you can go ahead and use a brush to, it gives you a layer mask where you can go ahead and brush out the areas that you don't want it to affect. But also you have to be careful when you do that. It may make the image look more fake. So what I'm just going to do is bring down the opacity a little bit more. About right there. Nice and subtle. So I have the opacity down to 18%. And I kind of like the way that that looks. So I'm going to leave that alone. I don't want something, let me see here. Yeah, you know what? Let's bring it down to 15. I want it nice and subtle. So that is exactly what I'm looking for. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Save. Now when I save that file, it's going to save it on a duplicate file. So this file right here is a duplicate file. It's not the original file that I was working on. The way that you can tell that is everything is zeroed out. If I click on my right arrow key, it should take me to it takes me to the image, the original image. And the way that you can also tell it's the original image is if you hit the key that is right below the delete key and right above the enter key. I guess it's called the backslash button. So you hold that down and it shows you your original image. Okay? If you go to this image and you do this, push the same button, which I'm doing right now, it doesn't do anything. So I like the way that this looks. I definitely like it better than just plain all blue in the back. So I'm going to go ahead and go with this image the way that it is. And that is my completed image. If you would like to see any more videos of me editing, or if you would like to know some more tutorials, please make sure to like and subscribe. Hit the little bell icon so you know when I post a new video. And always remember to check my website, www.chrisporello.com, and you can see a lot of my work. If you have any comments, you can reach me through there for business reasons also. And I will talk to you next time. Thanks for watching, guys.